Hi, ladies and gentlemen. How you doing? It's Dave Dobbs here. Excuse me wearing the glasses and getting the glare up, going again. It's a bit annoying, but I'm gonna need to observe the screen while doing this and to take you through this odd conundrum that we're in now of what happens next in this great cycle, this Planet X cycle that we've been observing. It's the 28th today, so it's the new moon today. And I was expecting, let's just share my screen. Let's just have a look at the volcanic activity. So we're just going to go to, what do I want? So, you know, it doesn't look like a massive, there hasn't been, I mean, there is enormous activity in volcanoes at the moment, as you can see, the amount they're going off today. The really big ones, that's light and sporadic from Etna. Shivaluch, that's been higher. 13,000 isn't massive. It's a big volcano at 13,000 feet or 4,000 meters isn't massive, but it's still pretty big. Yeah. Dukono, which is Popocatépetl, 21,000 feet. That's also a big volcano, but that's a pretty big eruption. But that's an ongoing, you know, we're just looking at pulses and, you know, when we see a massive surge in them, you know, right now, what did Reventador do? So not massive, but still, I mean, it's you know, these are all, you know, all of there's 25, 30 volcanoes or so that are actually active at the moment. So many of them are smoking and smoldering away and what have you. Well, there's more than that, but there's the ones that are really kind of like actively smoking, the ones that are actually exploding. These are the ones I'm looking at here. So let me just stop the share one shake and let's just have a little think and let's have a little recap about where we are now, because I was imagining it. This today is like it's peak round about this time. You know, we've seen a lot of earthquakes going off just lately, and it's been building up. This, I'm of a mind, is actually its peak. I was thinking it was going to get bigger, but the fact is, it hasn't been bigger than it was 2 weeks ago. It's actually been, earthquake-wise, it's been more intense. Volcano-wise, you're kind of feeling it's leveling off to whatever's affecting the planet. But I want to explore, you know, I've very much focused on obviously this twin tail object, which has kind of taken me into this kind of like desperate attempt to understand all these different flybys and try and get a picture on the shape of our solar system. And, you know, there's questions that we've got to ask because of the anomalies that we're seeing, especially as I keep going on about, if we are literally seeing nuclear power stations going to meltdown on the days of big earthquakes, and we've got our big carbon story, and just going back over to, let's go back to very quickly Safari, and we'll just, while I'm just talking about this, we'll just go over to that story there. Europe divided front on climate change, and it's exactly this again. We're completely locked into this. This is all to do with coming to a zero carbon, and all these green new deals that are all coming about. And you know, I want to, don't get me wrong, there's so many other gases that exhausts are chucking out and everything else like that, and it's the particulates and everything else. The carbon dioxide is, you know, it's a very, very low percentage of carbon dioxide in the air, considering the amount of carbon dioxide is getting pumped out by the volcanoes at the moment, and the amount of carbon dioxide that gets pumped out by industry and cars and domestic outputs and all the rest of it, but we have to remember it's carbon dioxide, it's CO2, and it's a very organic compound that has a very natural cycle on our Earth. And when you're talking about CO2, CO2 wandering around in our atmosphere is like you wandering around a parking lot with a massive, full of cars with a massive magnet, and trying to get up between all the cars without the thing getting clunked onto one car, and you pull it off, clunk, and it clunks onto another car. And it's when we talk about oxidizing, we're not necessarily talking about just oxygen, something that has a ferocious reaction, but generally, as far as I understand, we are mostly talking about, obviously, oxygen in the process. But it does actually happen. There are other atoms that apparently oxidize. If I can think of one of those in a second, I will. But ooh, crikey! Let me think of one that does that. Fluoride has an oxidizing process, which is why it's so damaging. It kind of latches onto kind of vital organs, and kind of like can latch onto the pituitary gland and shut down your kind of dreaming cycles enormously. God, I didn't think I was going to find one then. Sorry about that. But anyway, so but CO2 floating around in the atmosphere, it wants to be part of something else, and it will rapidly bond with a water molecule and produce carbonic acid. And our oceans, as I often talk about, take 30% of our carbon dioxide roundabout, just because of the moon, because of the waves generated by the moon and that massive surface to air ratio that absorbs all the carbon dioxide. It's a very natural gas, and we look at how it's vital for carbon dioxide to enter water to produce carbonic acid, which has 3 atoms of oxygen in each molecule, and 2 of those molecules can get either side of a calcium ion in bedrock and pull it out and dissolve a bedrock. And we would call it in the atmosphere acid rain when it absorbs carbon dioxide. The more rain we get, because these volcanoes, and one thing they're doing is they're sending tiny particles high up into the atmosphere, and moisture condenses on them, and it causes hail and all sorts of, because they get spun around in the high end of the, right up there, right up higher than the normal sort of clouds, right up where the jet stream is getting circled right up there. So you're getting enormous amounts of moisture coming off the sort of like Pacific, because of all these volcanoes under the Pacific, sending all this moisture up. So we've got loads of moisture up there all at the moment, and then these particles come up from these volcanoes also to the side of the Pacific basin, or on the Pacific basin, and of course this moisture condenses on these tiny particles, and so we get massive volumes of rain. And of course, this rain is also absorbing massive volumes of carbon dioxide, so it's like acid rain coming down. It just sucks it up, and so we've got this story going on that is feeding the nuclear industry, that uses the carbon story and all this carbon trading and everything else like that, but we're not directly tackling the problem. And I know I keep coming to this place because I truly don't know if we are now going to see that continuous spike of volcanoes through to October now. I really don't, because of sightings, again, that Alex Lugin's put up, but sightings that Alex Lugin has put up, that also are being corroborated by other people, not just at this time, but other times. And I want to look at some of that, because we've got to use all of these sightings whilst they're coming in, and keep throwing our heads at the possibilities of the orbital mechanics of our solar system and this system. This will be our only opportunity to bring this together and have an overview of this. And what's just come in, let me just go back now to sharing the screen and going over to, again, we're going to go to, well, let's go to my Finder first of all, and let's start off with what better place to start off actually than than this, which was, you know, many of you have seen this, and it's really good to keep remembering this and remember exactly what's being said here. NASA head accidentally admits Nibiru approaching via New Horizons mission mistake. Now, this was the original file which I found here was by Jacob Israel. And in the interview with The Verge, he said, "We can take pictures of Eris even though we're further from it than we would be if we stayed on Earth." John Spencer, New Horizons team member, said in an interview with The Verge, "But we're looking at it from a unique angle you could never see from Earth because Earth is so close to the sun." Because Earth is so close to the sun, we can take pictures of Eris even though we're further from it than we would have been if we'd stayed on Earth. I mean, but that wasn't why I wanted to stop her. I mean, you know, you've really got to try and think your head. They've told you that we went to Eris, which is hiding out in the Kuiper Belt, and every time we get hints that they're going towards the inner hub of our solar system or something closer to our sun, or going to a unique perspective from it, but they seem to be, I mean, guys, anyway, I want to come back to this shot, and this was from the 1st of September, and again, Alex Lujan posted it, and it was a Webcams de Mexico webcam shot. And I want to look again at the angle of this curve here. And you remember if we, and just another shot I'll show you recently also. Now, I don't know if this is an old shot. James LaFoe posted it on his That Is Impossible channel. And I love his channel. I don't know if it's a contemporary. He posted the video on July the 31st, but he's been covering a lot of this thing. And of course, James LaFoe originally came in this very much as a kind of on a flat Earth footing. But of course, I've just watched him develop enormously as a filmmaker and as a kind of flat earther, because he's kind of opened up a paradigm that he's brought all of this, because he's had a massive flat earth community, and they've all come into this, because basically, as far as I can see, all the flat earthers were kind of, they just basically spat the dummy. They just decided that this just didn't make sense. None of this made sense, and they opened their eyes to stepping out of it and looking at it anew, and with a completely different perspective. And this completely smacks in the face of flat Earth in many ways, but it smacks it in the face of a kind of like the standard ecliptic Copernicus model that we've been kind of used to, because there we see this shot. But let me now stop that share and go to did I stop my share then? And just go back to my Safari again. And I've just got to move this out of the way. You can't see that, but it rather gets in my way. It's my little control panel. So this was his video he posted on the 26th of September. Let me just come up here. So that's the object here, and he's kind of that's I'm getting the impression that of that zoomed up, and that's actually a picture of Jupiter, and he's comparing them and looking at the angle of the lines and looking at the oddity of it being there. I mean, for a start, looking at that position. And this thing here, how would you possibly see something next to the sun? How would it be possible to see something next to the sun, for a start? And let's bring that down again. Did he? That was on the 28th, so that I believe is today. And we're getting to see these lines again. And I believe Alex has shown us a picture of where exactly Jupiter is right now. So it's there. It's like Earth is here. It's literally perpendicular to where, you know, to the left, to kind of like a right angle, almost perfectly, nearly. I mean, it pretty much is, isn't it? It's certainly not behind it over here, not by our current understanding of the Copernicus model that we're in. So I just thought, you know, I've been looking at these shots and these puzzling shots, all these shots coming in of Jupiter again at the moment next to the sun and this impossibility. And I just wanted to, I'm going to have to move that one out of the way a little bit and just come over to, so this was the shot. This was the first shot that I got of, I'm just going to bring that out of the way a sec. And if you notice here, I took this on the I believe I took it on the 28th of August 2015. And what stuck out more than anything were these two spheres here that looked like two Olympic rings in the sky when you saw them. And of course, that's how that was what converted me into chartering Planet X, this shot here, because when I'd seen it, it was so overwhelming to actually see it up there and to see it myself and to cast my eyes on it and whatever that was. And the fact I could see it and I couldn't understand it. I've seen I don't know how many solar eclipses. I used to travel all around the world in my kind of like late 20s, early 30s, just chasing solar eclipses. And but just because of the mad pilgrimage and the divine magic that seemed to happen all the time, I was on a specific pathway going with a specific focus. All the time I had specific focus about intention in my life. Miracles and magic would happen abundantly. If I took my focus away, the magic would just stop. And that's one of the things why I think I am so much the way I am now, with a distinct focus on the work that I do. And I need to have a pinpoint focus of what the questions I need answering or need answers for, and what I'm trying to understand, which is why I spend an enormous amount of time trying to put this data into some sense that we can begin to understand. Now, if I look now at, like, where was exactly opposite to this? It's around about, what are we now? I've just come into, this is at the end of, Alex Luden's shot was on the 28th of September, basically today, September. So we have all of October, all of November, December, January, February, March. And then the next period would start at all of March, January, February, April, March, January, February, March, April. So it would be April. Yeah, sorry, excuse my just getting my basic months confused. So if I just come over to here, and why do we keep seeing this? This was on June the 6th. So actually June is the kind of June position, which is kind of 90 degrees left of where we are right now, exactly kind of like the angle where Jupiter is where we get this really clear image back in June. Except, as I'm understanding, we're again looking at the sun there. But then we come exactly 1/4. Oh no, we're going to come to that in a sec, because that was obviously the shot that this was the twin tail object being seen on July the 5th. So we're going to come to that in a shake, because that was, do you remember the earthquakes in California came on July the 3rd, and this was where we really got an idea of this thing's speed moving. But let's just keep going with Jupiter a sec, just because I want to get the dynamics. Because when you look at the overall arc of this, is what I was showing you in the first image. That's where it was in July, and we're just seeing it where it was on September the 1st. Alex Lugeon again gets all these shots. You know, everyone sends him all these shots because he religiously does the work. He gets it up there. You know, he gets people's work up there. He gets them an audience, and he just keeps putting it up there. So if people send him shots, he'll just keep putting them up there. And you know what I mean? And I've got tremendous respect for the amount of work he does, because I know he's got his own cross to bear amongst all of this. And he's one of those who's just come into this, and he's just about doing the work and getting them up there. We all have our different opinions of what this is. You know, I haven't got the answers. I'm just trying to throw all of these into ways in which we can make these patterns work, and we can get a possible window on the orbital mechanics of this. But this is how I do it, just by going for all these different people's shots that I haven't put up, that are all just coming in independently from as many different sources. So I can't just say they're all me and I'm just making this up and I'm just working with specific people. I'm not doing that at all, you know. I'm just trying to bring all of these people's shots in and try and make sense of them and see the patterns that we've got within this. So I want to just keep going with the Jupiter thing before we come back to that arc of this twin tail object and the midpoint I think we might be in now. Let's just go to, because we're getting the red dust coming down again, as we've seen lots and lots of shots of this, kind of like the red dust that we know we get when we're in close proximity. Let's see if I can find it. Let's have a look at his videos and show the shot. Why do we keep seeing this? So we'd have to go back literally another 3 months, almost exactly. We've gone way past 3 months now. Steve pumps out a lot of videos. Another shot where we're starting to see what looks like a strike pattern. That's 1 year ago. So it's that type of anyway, he had a shot of it. If I can find it. You might have to take my word for it if I can't. It might be this one. I mean, this was around about that time, so we're getting all of these shots. It could be this one. It was the same thing, but there was a day where, no, there we are. That's what I'm looking for. Maybe, is that what I'm looking for? The only image out of the spectrum that sat right bang in the center. Now that was the 1st of May. April, May, you know, it's like directly, you can see it would appear to be much bigger on that side. On exactly the far side of the solar system to where we are now. And this corroborates. And all the others, it's either side. And where I was going with that was, if we think about this shot that Alex put up on the 1st, I'd really like you to go and see the full thing, but just to get a gist of how fast it moves. Here we go. You just get a gist of, it's like we're going in 2 separate directions, one coming one way and one going the other. So if I come out of that and I just go over to, remember when I made this video back in, I mean, my videos go, you know, I bring so much of the same data in to try and keep working it. So we keep a focus. I'm not just trying to show you lots and lots of sensational data. I'm really just trying to help you kind of piece together, piece by piece by piece, by trying to keep all of these nuggets of information in their place so we can start building them. So we're working with them over and over. And that you're obviously having your own data that's coming in, and you're throwing your ideas at this. I honestly haven't got the answers here. I truly haven't. I truly don't even know which direction the sun is moving, whether it's up or down. I really do not know. And this model is just it just doesn't make any sense. Like I say, until we kind of change the dynamic and stretch that out into a into that how would it be, this kind of 3D notion of how we get these points here, this top point here, like in 19, when it was first discovered, 1930, 39, you know, Pluto discovered in 1930, 39, you know, the war begins, we have loads of earthquakes around there, and of course 49, they detonate the, 49, 45, they obviously detonate a massive nuclear bomb. Around about the same time, there was another massive earthquake. Then we get the midpoint over here, which is when Chernobyl went bang on the 26th of April, 1986, when we also saw, you know, big earthquake on the same day, and we saw Kilauea and Krakatoa going off. And I know you guys will go through this, but we're in this section here, or it's completely the reverse, and this is actually our sun, and this is actually the Planet X system. And that's why, this is why we're looking down the system where we're seeing it all at the other end. Really, I just do not know. All I can do, you know, like I say, that was our kind of like our crossing point that caused the 1986. But just coming forward now to this point, you know, this was obviously, as we keep going on about the patches that we saw last year. And Krakatoa blew its top off. Then we saw those two massive flybys that Steve Olsen put up. We saw others coming in. We saw the Relentless Maverick and Relentless Maverick. I'm just going to pause that there for one shake and just put a quick message out to Relentless Maverick. Bobby, I'm so sorry I haven't got in contact. I've been so crap. My mum's dealing with a brain tumor at the moment, so I've been ferrying her to hospital each day and that sort of stuff. So I'm trying to sort of like slot all this in with, and I know you've requested to do an interview with me, and as soon as the dust settles here a little bit, I'll get back in contact with you, and we'll have a good chin wag about what's going to happen now. But great apologies for not getting back to you, and for everyone else who's getting in contact with me, I'm so sorry. I'm just kind of, it's as much as I can do just to do these updates at the moment right now. But so just going on with that, you know, the sightings that we saw last year, and so what we're going to expect in terms of this aspect here, this crossing point here, and this arc point where we saw, because it seems to me that it almost goes like this, and the other one's going like this. And that means because of, just come back and just go very quickly out of that, because we don't want to kind of get lost on this thread and you half think you understand what I'm talking about. Let me just very quickly stop the share and just go back to share my Finder again, and go back to Alex Illusions from the 1st of September. Look at the arc there. The sun's over here. The arc is over here. And again, you know, I was about to say about the solar eclipses when I was showing the shot that I got next to the shot that I got of Jupiter and everything next to, or whatever it was I got next to the sun, and the two big spheres. Because I travelled off to all these eclipses, I always knew you could never see what was next to the sun. You couldn't photograph what was next to the sun. Absolute impossibility. And there we all were and have been consistently through this, getting shots of things next to the sun. And for someone like myself, it was just so massively anomalous, because I'd spent such an enormous amount of time chasing eclipses and trying to have those sort of observations. In actual fact, when I came to America, it was also to go to the eclipse around about, you know, late August 2017, all the same time as the big sighting on the 17th of August, you know, that I always go on about. But anyway, let's go back now to getting that arc there, this arc here. And but we were here, and can you see the arc here? And what had happened was I developed this system and realized that because we knew there was two of these, two twin tail objects that we've seen, and we've seen the pair of them, and the pair always indicate, like I say, they seem to orbit the same central point, because we only ever really see them at this point here, over here, and round about here, basically. As far as I can see, they're always on this side. They're never on this side. And so it tells us, now we see this one facing the other way. It kind of throws this whole thing. Are we orbiting this, or is this orbiting us? And so it leaves us with this question, because we don't know which way the arc is. Well, we do know which way the arc is, because it seems, you know, Mr. MBB just posted. Let's just come over to now. Mr. MBB's just shot. Whether this is it, I don't know, but it's exactly what I'm expecting to see. It gets to the point where it's, you know, I was assuming that the reason that the seismology is occurring is roundabout, you know, like the tsunami that happened on the 23rd of September last year. Was it because of this thing dropping back each time a calendar month? So that before it was in August, and we just keep going back, and we've seen this pattern as I've demonstrated all the way through my videos. You know, one thing I've never failed to do is give you this flyby that comes at this point. We always have the flyby, you know, and this was just the date. It's coming up for the 22nd of October, is for us to see this. But is that it? Maybe that's just a cloud. I don't know. I truly do not know. But it's what I'm expecting to see in the position between us and the sun, arcing across. And if you can picture it's coming up like that for us, we are basically at some point or other, if this is the timeline of this, if this is going to be the biggest passage, we are again going to have to go very close to the front of this, like we did last year. You see how close we got to it last year. It's very, very difficult to understand, because to understand the astronomics of the solar system by looking at the sun when you're standing on the edge of the earth looking at the sun. Because from this perspective here, New Mexico, you know, you kind of, you know, we're not in the center, you're still in the northern hemisphere here, but you're kind of like, you know, you're kind of like, you're not right at the top of the northern hemisphere, so you're not looking at the ecliptic plane from as if you're looking at it as if it's flat, but it's still more like it's a massive great Ferris wheel that's going more like that, more a bit of an angle like that, depending on where you're standing or at sunrise or sunset, and what aspect of the north or the southern aspect of the globe you're standing at. But we see it more like a Ferris wheel, so we get a very complicated perspective to really understand the movements of it. That's why you have to kind of draw these things out and make different kind of like, and I'm not too sure whether this is sunset or sunrise, so it's a very confusing picture to calculate. But nonetheless, it's kind of what we're expecting to see. And so we're assuming it's like this, except it's two of these effectively. And I think I've shown you the image. I don't think I've got it on this thumbnail. Maybe I've got it on this thumbnail somewhere. I don't know if I'd worked it out at that stage. I was still at that stage. This video was still before that, I think, and I was still very much on trying to understand how two big bodies, two binary systems, or the two components of a binary system kind of like move through each other, and how that works. So anyway, so we've got this arc point here, and we're seeing it come over, and we're also pondering whether Jupiter could really be directly behind the sun right now. And it's this alignment that's causing the midpoint. That's why it represents this midway point, possibly. I truly do not know now what's going to happen. I knew that we'd get a massive surge in volcanoes for this point, and I knew that for the that I could without any doubt whatsoever go along to Extinction Rebellion and definitely say that we would get a massive spike. But that spike is starting to tail off. And if it tails off now, then, well, we know what happens as we get closer to this point here. As we get closer to the December-January point, and this gets closer and closer to this point here, we know that we're all getting closer to, we are all coming to the same place. We've been at this point of the cycle many times. We know that as we go to this point now, whether the volcanoes and the earthquakes will increase, but they will likely, in my opinion now, because of it's plateaued off, if you like. If anything, it's dropped down slightly, but it's more or less, it's plateaued off at the moment. We've reached a height in volcanoes, and we've reached a height in earthquakes, I'm of opinion. I mean, it could be that it gets worse. I'm imagining now it's going to tail off until we start getting much, much closer as it starts coming in here, as it starts coming along here, and we start coming around. We're neck and neck. We just can only get closer and closer. And hopefully, if that is, we should stay ahead of it all the way through this. We should stay ahead of it all the way through this. But you can imagine it could be now that it's more like November, you know, whatever the month is that it begins on, you know, I imagine that it's gonna pull on the southern aspect of our globe like it did last year. And you remember in the north, by December, North America was absolutely plunged under snow. Every last part of North America was under heavy snow. Freezing cold conditions, super freezing cold conditions in December, like America had very rarely seen. I don't know any time in their recent history they'd seen such plummeting temperatures. That will happen again this year, but this is 1 month further behind where it was last year, because it moves slow. It's one rotation takes 396 days, and Earth's rotation takes 365 days. So there's like exactly 1 calendar month difference, and so it drops back 1/13 of its cycle every year. So it's going to be much more close to us as we come in here, and it's going to pull the southern aspect of the globe closer to it, which means that in Australia they're going to get extreme temperatures, and they're going to get much more. The southern aspect of this globe is going to get much more bombarded with this red dust as we get closer to this. I can imagine as we get closer to it, it will just start enveloping the whole planet. You know, we'll start getting much, much more of it, much more red water coming down. We're going to get it's going to plunge the northern aspect further away from the sun. It's going to exacerbate our winter. It's going to draw on a very rapid onset winter. It is undoubtedly going to cause volcanoes, but I can't imagine that the volcanoes will massively increase now, because what I was going to do was I was going to run a line from what happened on the 14th and what happened on today, basically yesterday and today, and that line is pretty straight. It's not going up. It hasn't increased that much today. That it's going to be much the same as this in October, I would imagine. that doesn't mean it's not going to be much of a decrease in volcanoes, but it's just going to be this constant spew of carbon dioxide from the volcanoes, steady earthquakes, and steady increase, steady the sort of 6s, 6.5s, until we get to November. I'd imagine this is not going to really start affecting us until kind of like, well, it is going to be late October. It's going to be late October, kind of November. That's when we come into this. Yeah, it's going to be around about that time, isn't it? It's going to begin around about then. This is going to be probably the most intense transit we've had. Anything else to show you here? Well, there was just, that was strange, wasn't it? Because I don't know if she's still posting as much as she was posting, Julie Griffin. But that was around about the sort of like, that was around about, May as well, where we're getting these sensational shots, but much, much bigger, to the sort of size that we'd expect this thing to be. In terms of Jupiter. I mean, there's what we're seeing and there's what we're being told. And I've got a funny feeling that the astronomical community that charters this for real, that runs the NASA propaganda channels, just stop my share, that runs the NASA propaganda channel, which it mostly is because they trying to give you a story one way or the other, and things have run so far ahead, they are trying to kind of like have some form of organization and containment and all the different relationships they've got and the intellectual property contracts that are being signed between what other intelligence that is interacting with humanity right now. And it seems that, when we look at a society like the Chinese, or a race like the Chinese, it's very easy, because it's so far away, to kind of have this kind of odd sort of overview as if they're somehow different to us in some way, shape or form, because they seem so different in some ways. And I lived in Hong Kong and for a long time, and I really fell in love with the Chinese way. I must admit, their big extended families, and the way you can know a Chinaman for 10 years and before you really realize that they're an absolute master at what they do, they can really dedicate themselves in ways that is just quite fantastic, and with in a very humble sort of manner. And there's something quite fantastic about the Chinese. But they had, because of Deng Xiaoping. Deng Xiaoping was the guy the patriarch who kind of died in 1997. But he was the patriot who brought in the system. He was exiled actually because of his opinions. He was very Marxist, very left wing, and he had a great plan of funding total communism by creating a capitalist enclose, which he called kind of system one country, two systems. And you could go into this capitalist system and leave the support of the, have your job, have you given your job, always given, always have, have a career, have everything kind of done for you. You'd have to do the work, but you'd have a place in society and be given land to keep, or if whatever your best skills were, you'd be found a job to best suit your skills and that sort of stuff, and the government would find it for you. And that was the communist way with China until, after Chairman Mao, when Deng Xiaoping came in after his, when Chairman Mao, died, that's when he came back and he implemented his whole system. And It's become the big thing. And of course, this is what Margaret Thatcher thought she could sort of extend when she went out there in 1982, thinking that she was going to walk out and just extend the kind of like the capitalist kind of like, area, which was, mostly Guangzhou, and open it right up to Beijing and beyond, and expand it. And of course, it just blew up in her face, and she ended up losing the whole of Hong Kong because she didn't deal with the situation properly. She didn't know how to deal with the situation. She sat down with the foreign minister for informal chats the day before she was due to meet Deng Xiaoping, and said, and he said to her, "Well, you understand there's a great deal of mistakes that need to be corrected." And she promptly said to probably the most intelligent man in China, if not the world, foreign minister, who was there, he was part of the government. Deng Xiaoping was not part of the government. He was the leader of the People's Party, but he did not have a position. I know it sounds loopy, but he did not have a position in government. The person she should have been speaking to then was the foreign minister, who she promptly said, "Well, we'll deal with that tomorrow," and shut him up. And of course, the following day, she went to meet Deng Xiaoping, and she never even got to speak to him. He just kind of rebuffed her and said, China would be delighted to have Hong Kong back, and its sovereignty means everything. And she was promptly escorted. And that's where you see Margaret Thatcher on all fours outside the Great Hall in Beijing in 1982, where she just collapses in shock that she just screwed the whole deal, lost the Great Dragon, one of the four dragons, they say. You know what I mean? It was the deepest harbour in the South China Sea, just to a bum deal, because she didn't try to even attempt to kind of deal with him in that moment. She just thought, exactly, I don't want to speak with you. I want to speak to the head honcho, the capitalist guy who started this all. But of course, she didn't realise that he was unbelievably communist, and he had created a kind of voluntary capitalist kind of offshoot, which what it was going to be, its revenue maker, a whole society that would be devoted to generating the funds to fund total communism. No one really knew what total communism was, but of course she got it completely wrong because she didn't understand Deng Xiaoping's politics. She thought she did, or advisors. And the current political kind of like situation is that they do not quite understand especially they don't really understand what they're dealing with here. We're kind of in that same category. If the Chinese were to look at us, they would see us in a very similar sort of way, that we are the fodder of a shadow government that has us as almost like a slave race that is in a little story, and we're just there to run in their little treadmills to drive all of this. And we've got this kind of fractionalized story of reality. And all this is that we're coming out of that now. Us going past, if we really did just go through the central aspect, and the intensity of this has not been the actual, imagine if the main intensity of this midpoint has actually been not because of the twin tail object. I mean, I truly do not know, and I'm just going to keep reviewing this, because all we've got to do is look at all the different pictures, keep running all the data, keep the information in, keep putting it in proportion, keep trying to make some sense of it. Keep looking at different possibilities of how this might work, and advance our understanding of how a binary system interacts, which I will go back now to very quickly, because we just said that, And we're just going to come back to that safari shot over here, and we'll just go back to look at that again. I've got it in super slow motion there, and you can see how we could see how it doesn't necessarily have to plunge into the northern hemisphere of our solar system as we assumed, how it seems to sort of come round. It always seems to sort of go off in the same fashion, at the same kind of exit angle. It seems to ultimately go under. So I better stop there because I can see the lights on. The lights are disappearing there. Maybe I can come out of that a little bit and tilt that away. But look at that, my light's going. I can see the screen's falling apart and everything else. So I think I'll close it there. But you know, it's hopefully for all you Extinction Rebellion lot out there. I'm not against Extinction Rebellion at all. I would just like to see a charged kind of movement, charged with kind of with what you really want to achieve at the end of this, other than lowering carbon dioxide with all these volcanoes going off. You know, don't we all want to come together really and see that what we're all aiming for is abundant clean energy? Isn't that what we all want here? And if we focused on that, I'm tilting my head a little bit, maybe I can just take my glasses off there, but what we all really want there is abundant clean energy. And if we drop the carbon story a little bit and we all start focusing on these alternatives, and keeping an eye up there, but knowing there's not a lot we can do other than stay in peace. You know, as I've always said about this system, it's the policeman of our world. It's the policeman of our world. It comes to eliminate that which is of war. It keeps the peace by wiping off this planet anything that is of war. And that's what it does. It regulates this world, because whatever created us, if we go into war, it means that whatever created us is at war. And it's not a war, which means that anything that's of a war and a threat to the greater universe and a threat to this whole creation has to be brought in line. We're a single race living in a universe surrounded by other races and other life forms. What are we doing? Just running around killing each other, waging wars. We've got to see through it. They're just going to divide us at every juncture now. And so I'd imagine that the big October time that we were coming in now is going to be when they're going to be putting all their political pieces on the table. That's when they're going to be doing all their big maneuvers on this big chessboard to try and drive everything into anger and blame and hate and violence and war. And we can so go above that now because we know their game, and we know that we've got to be careful what we feed in this process. Who's just trying to profit from this process, and who's really trying to come to a solution of this process, in this process. So I wish I had more answers, I'm afraid. There are more questions and answers again right now, I'm afraid. We just got to watch this system now and do the best we can. But really, I just don't know what's going to happen. And I think we know we're kind of in it now. And I'm just going to watch this space. Good luck wherever you are. Apologies for not getting back to so many people. Like I say, I've been dealing with a lot of other stuff just lately, and I've just kind of like had to focus on that. So all the best to you, and all the love in the world. Big peace in the air, you know, really hold that space inside of you now. Hold it. All the noise going on around and that sort of stuff. Just, you know, with this big alignment that we've just had, it's just like a big cosmic bog brush. That's what it is. It's a big cosmic toilet brush. You know, it's just cleaning out the shit. So it's all coming to the surface. So loads of you are going to have loads of emotions, loads of anger, loads of issues coming up at the moment. Just let it come up, be with it, feel it. Don't try and fight it. It's all right. Just experience it. And through the experience of that, try and decide how you might do things better. How you might do things better if you were to have that opportunity again or see these things come around again. How you would correct all those mistakes. Don't dwell on them too much. Don't dwell on all the sadness. Look at it when it comes up. Don't be scared to feel it. If you shed a tear, it's okay. And just go through and think, what would I do if that came around again? Would I do that again? Could I do that better? Just recycle it all. Evolve. Take care. Bye.